Good morning, everyone. Hello, I wanted to thank you all for joining in today's NSF International Automotive Update. My name is Katie Boone. I'm the Marketing Manager for the Automotive Business Unit here at NSF International. Just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. We are going to keep the phones muted during the call. You can use the chat function on the bottom left of your screen to ask questions to the speaker. Throughout the webinar, he can either answer them or answer them at the end whenever is best fit for him. So that's the best way to get a hold of us if you have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the speaker, Dave Parzen. He's our Senior Technical Manager here. He's worked here for 14 years in the quality management and engineering expertise, which includes 10 years with NSF. Dave oversees the technical operations for NSF's Automotive Certification Division and is very involved in the development and oversight of the NSF Collision Repair Shop Certification Program, which enables shops to demonstrate that an independent organization evaluated and certified the shop's capability to execute quality, consistent repairs. Previously, Dave managed the NSF engineering labs and certification programs for children's product safety. He has earned his chemical engineering and BA degrees from the University of Michigan here in Ann Arbor. Go ahead, Dave, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Katie, for the introduction. Just looking at the list, it looks like we have a large group of people. Thank you all for taking the time just to call in this morning. Some of you I know very well, and others I haven't had the opportunity to meet, but I think this webinar will be valuable for everyone who's on the call. And I will be, just as Katie mentioned, feel free as this is going forward to ask questions throughout. We'll answer them towards the end of the presentation, but so don't feel like I'm dismissing you if I don't respond while we're going through. Just to introduce, open and start with just some industry information and trends that are going on. This, I'm sure, is not new to anyone who's on the call today, but as we know, we're starting to see accident frequency starting to stabilize. A lot of that could be attributed to newer technology and safety features being put on vehicles, but ultimately we're still seeing, even though it's starting to stabilize and predicted to go down, severity is still a big issue because, especially for the newer cars, they're more expensive to repair, especially with newer technology. The fleet is still remains relatively old, but it's slowly starting to get younger. New vehicles are starting to see repair costs increase. Insurance companies are still battling higher costs in competitive market, and repairers are challenged to make investments in different tooling, training, and certifications. This is just an interesting slide to look at where we've trended over the last, say, almost 20 years. The OE part utilization within the industry is pretty stable at that 63-62% mark. It's just very interesting to see where the aftermarket has trended. Since 2000, it's more than doubled from right around 9% to almost 20% today. There's no doubt that the companies like NSF have played a role in driving that and just providing a lot of confidence to everyone within the industry, all the different stakeholders, and the quality in aftermarket parts, in particular certified aftermarket parts. And we're happy to see that there are just other alternative competitive parts that can be used in the industry. Oops. So for those of you who don't know NSF, I'm going to do a brief 2-minute introduction. We're one of the oldest, largest, and most respected ANSI accredited certification bodies in the world. I'll talk a little bit more about ANSI and who they are in a little bit, but we're a not-for-profit organization. We've been around for more than 70 years, and our ultimate mission is protect public health and safety wherever we go. And we live that mission out by writing certification standards. We have over 90 standards that are published and that we certify to in the world today. We certify to those standards. For products that we certify, we have testing labs all over the world, and we audit factories and facilities for services that we certify as well. We have about 2,500 employees, and we operate in over 170 different countries. we were started, NSF used to stand for National Sanitation Foundation. We've been around since the 1940s. That was right around the time when people started eating in restaurants. And at the time, there were no collaborative standards for food sanitation, and there were a lot of issues in restaurants in particular with people getting sick. So there were 4 professors from the University of Michigan School of Public Health that got together and wrote the first NSF standard around food equipment. And today, when you go into the kitchen of a restaurant, you close your eyes and literally touch anything from the garbage cans, the juice machines, the garbage, I mentioned garbage cans, shelving units, ice cream machines, soda machines, literally everything will be NSF certified. NSF doesn't stand for National Sanitation Foundation anymore because we've diversified in so many different directions. But we're in a lot of different industries, from swimming pools and spas, anything from the suction filters, the fittings, drinking water, mechanical plumbing, plastic pipes, and dietary supplements. We work very closely with athletic organizations like the NFL, Major League Baseball, the Olympics, with their banned substance programs. And we've been in the automotive space, in particular in collision, since 2010, when we started certifying aftermarket parts. One of our philosophies at NSF is really certifying an entire supply chain. And that really started out, I don't know where this term was coined, but in the food industry, we certify from farm to fork. And in the same way, we have the same philosophy within the collision space, because at the end of the day, we want to assure that consumers have their cars fixed correctly and safely. And it doesn't matter if a car is not fixed correctly, whether it's because of a bad part was used, or whether the wrong part was shipped from a distributor, or whether the technician did the repair improperly. At the end of the day, the consumer wants their car fixed properly and safely, and the only way to do that is to go about certifying the full supply chain. So the first thing that we do before we even get into certification is we have to develop standards that we certify to. And one of the things that is often overlooked is in a lot of different industries is, what is certification? The example that I always like to give is when I'm interviewing somebody and I look at their resume and they have gone to a university that I had never heard of. I look and I check to make sure that that university is accredited, because I could make up, say that I have some kind of degree from the University of NSF International, and that won't mean anything because I just made that up. So having an accreditation means something. And in the same way in certification, the ANSI is the American National Standards Institute. They accredit different organizations. They have to follow certain rules and meet certain criteria in order to write standards and certify products and services to those. So there are a lot of different rules that we have to follow in order to maintain that. And when we're developing standards, one of the things that we have to do is we have to have an open process. We have to have balance on a committee that develops the standard. So we have to have industry folks that represent and make up the full diversity of an industry come together. And there has to be a due process. There has to be a voting process where each organization that's on the committee will only get one vote. And together, the committee will come up with a consensus standard that is used to drive and direct the certification. So starting out with our part certification, I just want to kind of very quickly walk us through what goes into it and what process a manufacturer would need to go through in order to get a part certified. So if there was a new manufacturer that wanted to certify a part, the first thing that they need to do is they need to have their facility or facilities approved to make sure that they are capable of making parts that are going to be certified. So a prerequisite is being ISO 9001 or TS certified. It's absolutely vital and critical that they have a good quality management system in place to assure that they're not only going to make good parts, but consistently good parts day in and day out that meet the strict requirements and criteria of what goes into having a certified part. It's important. We're always certifying parts to be equivalent in form, fit, and function to the OE parts. So it's critical that they have good quality management systems in place. Once we validate their ISO 9001 certification, NSF will go in and do an additional factory audit just to make sure that they have additional above and beyond quality management systems in place, checking the control plans, checking the records to make sure that they're tracking all the different tests that are required right on the lines where the parts are coming off. Once the facility or factory is approved, the company can start submitting parts to be tested. Parts are sent to an NSF-approved lab for testing. NSF audits all these different labs to make sure that they meet the different criteria that goes into being independent, that they have all the right processes, that they have the right instrumentation, that they have the right reporting out so that they can report up. They can do the testing for form, fit, and function. For form, we do a lot of visual inspections and checking different key critical dimensions. NSF parts that are certified are fit tested on actual vehicles. We have a lab in California that many on the call have been to and visited, where we're actually taking the parts and we're fitting them onto vehicles and comparing them to see how they compare with both the OEM and OES parts, how they fit. There are some parts like headlamps that need to meet NHTSA FMVSS requirements for illumination and several other requirements. We also, anytime that there's a regulation like that, we test and make sure that they meet those criteria as well. Once the testing is completed, all the test reports and audit results are sent to an NSF technical reviewer to make a certification decision. If all the criteria is met, that part can be certified. Once the part is certified, it goes on to NSF's public listing site, and CCC, Mitchell's, and any of the other data providers are notified on a weekly basis so that they can update their information accordingly. In my opinion, probably the most important part of part certification is market surveillance, because anyone who's been in manufacturing before knows that it's really easy to make one good part, but it's very difficult to consistently make good parts on a day in and day out basis. So we do quarterly factory facility audits where we're in the factories again, reviewing the control plans, reviewing all the records that are being tracked within the internal labs within the factories, to making sure that they're doing all the testing that they need to be doing, and when certain things come out of parameter, making sure that there's an isolation and that parts are being quarantined that don't meet the criteria and the specifications. In addition, we do in-market testing, where in Ann Arbor, our lab, we test hundreds of parts where we buy from distributors in the U.S. The manufacturers don't know which parts we're going to select, but we'll buy those parts from a distributor and we'll test them to make sure that they continue to meet their criteria. We also monitor return rates from distributors to make sure that if anything gets above really the 3% return rate, and that's returns related to only quality issues, quality or fit, we'll make sure that those parts get in-market tested as well. And anytime that there's a complaint, we will investigate it and potentially do more testing on that as well. Every NSF part will have a tamper-proof two-part label that has a barcode that's traceable back to a manufacturer and lot. One of the things that we announced at SEMA this year, if you haven't, is a new app. If you haven't downloaded it, I encourage you to do so. It's called Vehicle Repair Connect. It's available on the Apple Store and Google Play. And it does really two things. One is you can look up NSF parts based on the barcode or the number that's on the part, and see if it's actually certified, and see if it's just to help prevent counterfeit parts that are out there. But what it also does is there's an application to file a complaint. And you can literally file a complaint in seconds. It's very easy to do. You take a picture. You have an option to write some comments about the part. There are a couple other fields that need to be filled out, and you hit the submit button and it's submitted. And this is really meant to be used not only for NSF parts. You can submit a complaint about a CAPA part, a non-certified part, an OE part, but the intent of using this is really to drive improvements in the marketplace. If there are problems and issues with parts, we want to know about them. We want to get them fixed so just to make everything that much better. This is a brief graph that shows the different vehicle applications where NSF parts are available. As you can see, for lighting, it has the most vehicle applications, followed by exterior plastic body parts, sheet metal, brackets and bumpers, rebars, absorbers, steel bumpers, assemblies, and front bumpers. And finally, just to highlight benefits of NSF certified parts, it helps the entire industry, all the different stakeholders, just have different options available and just drive competition within the industry. Being able to have cost-effective parts that are equivalent to the OE parts, it makes an impact and reduces the overall severity. It means less cars are going to be totaled going into junkyards. It's going to be more work for body shops, and it really provides a high-level service for everyone that's involved. Something new that we've found that we've been looking at over the last, I'd say, year, maybe year and a half, is that the NHTSA FMVSS rules were written over 40 years ago, and at the time, the average age of a vehicle on the road was between 5 and 6 years old. And so the rules for the lens coating and lens durability was 3 years. And what we've seen happen now is the average age of a vehicle is more than double that. It's in that 12-year mark. And what we're seeing some of the OEs starting to do, and some have already done this, is that even though the NHTSA laws haven't changed, they've taken it upon themselves to go to a 5-year coating. So we want to be proactive and do the same thing. We want to make sure we always say that the parts are equivalent in form, fit, and function to the OEs. So starting this year, NSF certified lamps will all have a 5-year coating on them. One of the things just to mention is that when we did a cost analysis on this, it's literally pennies per lamp in cost. So there should not be an additional cost that should be seen anywhere in the supply chain with this, but it should be an added benefit and help the headlamps durability improve by 60%. Really, so we started a distributor certification back in 2012. There are a lot of different things that the certification does. The key things that I want to highlight is they need to have a high quality management system in place. So again, ISO 9001 certification is a prerequisite to getting in the program. The main feature of the program, the one thing that we probably look at the most is part substitution. We want to make sure that certified distributors are shipping parts that are ordered by shops. So if a shop orders a certified part from NSF or CAPA, that's what they're getting. If they order a non-certified part or a value line part or what have you, that's what they're getting. Just making sure that there's not part substitution going on. We also want to make sure that there's a level, if in the event of a recall were ever to take place, that the distributor has a system in place to be able to track that and to execute around a recall. This map shows the list of different distributors. There are 24 total different distributors that are now certified, with representing over 190 different locations. As you can see, there's representation throughout the country. Should be something that you could potentially be looking at to be used for network shops based on the coverage that you see here on the map. I think everyone is aware of and very sensitive to this John Eagle Collision Center case that just took place at SEMA. That seemed to be all that anyone was talking about. And it's unfortunate, not getting into specifics or not taking sides. One of the things that we definitely see, and it's on our radar, is that there's going to be a lot more, the term, use ambulance chasers out there, and a lot more sensitivity around that. So if you're not working with NSF or another organization like NSF for shops, it would be something that is worth considering, being sensitive to the risk that is out there, and people that are just waiting and looking to jump on something, whether it's there or not. Just having that extra layer of defensibility is something to consider looking at. But that's really what NSF Repair Shop Certification is all about. We want to make sure that shops that earn certification have a high level, they provide high level quality repairs, and they provide excellent customer service. So there's 3 different certification types that a shop can earn. Depending on what that shop does, they can earn cosmetic, structural, or aluminum. And the audit really focuses on in-process inspections. So it's important that the shop has the right training in place, that they have the right equipment, that they have the customer complaint process, but the emphasis is really looking at the actual vehicles, making sure the vehicles are following the OE procedures, and that the cars are going to be returned to the customer in a safe and reliable way. We recently, I'd say about less than a year ago, we launched a recycler certification program. Some of the requirements include parts grading, vehicle and part inventory and tracking, safety and dismantling process, training and equipment. The main, really, from an insurance perspective, the main feature thing that we do that would provide a benefit is the parts grading. We've heard, as we've talked to different people on the technical committee and people in the industry, that that's always been an issue, that parts are not graded accurately, and that that's something that needed to improve. And that's one of the things that we audit to when we certify a recycler, to make sure that their parts grading is consistent and is calibrated with existing standards that are out there. We will be launching a remanufactured parts certification program. The first part groups that we're going to be certified, that will be certifying facilities for, are starter motors. There will be other part types that remanufacturers can apply for in 2018. Let me say something clear though. We're not certifying the actual parts that are remanufactured. We're certifying the facility that's remanufacturing these parts. Again, they need to be ISO 9001 to have high quality, show that they have a good quality management system in place. Every single part that is remanufactured out of that facility, it needs to be tested and evaluated before it's resold into the industry. The parts are fit tested. They're looked at and evaluated for appearance to make sure that they meet different criteria that's in the standard. They also, any type of moving parts or replaceable parts like different bushings or gaskets or O-rings, lubricants, all those different components will need to be replaced. The core is the part that can be remanufactured. In 2017, with all the advancement of ADAS technology, we have launched 2 new certification programs, one for proximity sensors, another for backup cameras. There will be others that are going to be coming out in 2018 that we'll talk about in the next webinar. With proximity sensors, what we're doing is there are NHTSA rules and tests that are required to make sure that they're safe and that they work appropriately, and we test according to those standards. Each factory needs to be audited annually to make sure that their quality system requirements are being met. There are physical wear and tear tests that are done, and the fit and connectivity tests are done after the physical wear and tear tests are done, just to make sure that in different weather conditions the sensors are still going to function after they're in extreme cold or humid conditions, or they could potentially corrode. So part of the NHTSA tests, there's besides being appearance connections, We're going to look for range of detection, response time, and communication as part of the requirements. There will be a limited lifetime warranty on certified sensors, and they will all bear the NSF mark and be listed on NSF's site. We've received a lot of questions about when we're going to start seeing certified proximity sensors, and we hoped that we would have them by now. Unfortunately, this is new. The manufacturers who are making these parts are new to the whole certification world, and unfortunately, the parts that we've tested, they're just not meeting the criteria and the requirements. And NSF will not certify something that we won't stand behind, that's not equivalent to the OE part and meeting all the NHTSA requirements. So while there have been setbacks, I'm optimistic. We're working with several different manufacturers who are going through the process right now. I'd say within 3 to 4 months, we should start seeing sensors available on the market that are certified. Oops. For backup cameras, the requirements are very similar to proximity sensors, where you go through you'll have your appearance evaluation, you'll do the fit and connectivity tests after the physical wear tests, and again, it's testing against the OE and to the NHTSA requirements. Oops. NSF has a registration program for certain part types to pass FMVSS NHTSA testing requirements and be evaluated for fit and function. Some of the part types that I'll talk a little bit more about are mirrors and TPMS. Specific requirements for these parts are outlined in the next few slides, but the difference that I just want to highlight between certification and registration is registration is a much less expensive, I guess you would say, alternative to certification. It doesn't include in-market testing. It doesn't involve factory audits. What we're validating is that the design of a part meets certain testing requirements, and we would register a part once it meets those different requirements. So there's less risk mitigation, but it's faster and a less expensive alternative. For mirrors, we test according to FMVSS 111 requirements. So we'll test for field of view, reflectance, mounting, marking, and curvature. We'll also do a vibration test to make sure that there will not be blurriness in the mirror, make sure that the glass is seated properly, blind spot detection. The other feature that we check for is that if an OE has a certain feature on it, like a turn signal light or a defroster or any other feature, we make sure that the aftermarket part has that same feature as well. Similarly, for tire pressure monitoring system sensors, we test according to FMVSS 138. It's really looking to make sure that the sensor ID writes for sensors with cloning capabilities, that the sensor is accurate, that it's reading, it's registering properly, and that it syncs with the particular protocol, links up and syncs with the vehicle in a timely manner that's outlined in the FMVSS requirement and guidelines. Looking ahead in 2018, we'll be launching a certification for radiator supports. There will be other part types and other certifications that we will also be announcing that we'll talk about at the next webinar. And that was the last slide, so thank you. I'll look to see if any of you have any questions. Feel free to write them now. Otherwise, you can feel free to call me or email me after the meeting, and I'd be happy to talk to you and discuss it with you. But I appreciate everyone taking the time here today. First question is, can we get a copy of the presentation? Yes. I'll make sure that we send out a copy of the slides to everyone who's on the call today. Another question is, why are shops so hesitant to use NSF versus CAPA parts? Well, that's a good question. That's a question probably more for the shops than for me to answer. The best that we could do is we want to make sure that all the parts that NSF certifies, if they meet the criteria, if they truly are equivalent to the OE parts, we stand by that. And everything that we can do to make sure that the parts are equivalent, that's all that we could do just to help the industry continue to grow confidence in certified NSF parts. There's a question about, is there a way to get information about cost data per channel, about percent of parts being utilized? Unfortunately, I don't have information on that. CCC probably does, but we don't have that information. Another question, is CAPA a competitor? Yes, on the parts side, we consider CAPA a competitor. I think that answers the question. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. We're going to try and do these more frequently and try to have relevant and good information to provide. And again, thanks and have a great day.